y'all so much for coming. We really appreciate it, and we're just so honored to have both of these artists, Ori Gersht here in the Project Gallery with his new series, Amalgamation, and Eva Lunsager's beautiful paintings in the main gallery, Time is Very Quick. So we'll start with Ori in here. Ori's here from London. Thank you so much for being here. He actually just came from by way of New York because he just had a book signing for the first book that he wrote, which was first written in Hebrew. A fiction book, yes, which is wonderful. It's called Ham's Heaven, and I encourage you all to look it up. It's available on Amazon, published by Warbler Press. It's a wonderful book. But we are so excited, Ori, to hear about your most recent series, Amalgamation.
So I'll talk about amalgamation in relation to my practice. So this series was inspired by Hendrik Schoock, a Dutch painter from the 17th century. And in my work, I often explore relationship between art history and photography. And although my work is resting on the foundation of old masters, what I'm making is something that is so removed and detached from old masters' work. It's not derivative, but it's creating or it's capturing moments that were incomprehensible for old masters. Because all my work, particularly these series, are relying on new technologies. And what really interests me is how technological development and advancement changing the relationship that we have with the world and with truth and with representation, and how they, through the years, affected artists. And new technology determined different ways to engage with the world and represent it. So the reason I said that there is this incredible gap between the 17th century and these works is because I'm capturing an event which are moments of explosions that are happening at tremendous speed. So a speed that the naked eye can never process and see. You can only comprehend this thing with the aid of the technological device of a camera, because they're capturing things that are happening at 60,000th of a second. It's a time that simultaneously we experience and don't. It's something that's hovering in the space between the physical and the metaphysical. And yet, these photographs had no manipulation whatsoever in them. They are just optical recording of a moment. And for me, this is really important in all my work, to be loyal to the relationship that a certain moment has with the presence of the camera. The camera is witnessing an event. These images look quite spectacular and remove from simple documentation, but essentially that's what they are. And this question about truth, does the camera record something? Because we stand beside the camera and we cannot see these things. It only comes to life when the camera capturing it. Now the camera cannot capture something that does not exist. And people can talk about photography in different ways, and there are all these debate about abstract photography. I don't believe that there is abstract photography. You can make prints with light, but photography is about a relationship between a tangible object that is in front of a lens, that lights are refracting back from this object, focusing through a lens, and then creating an impression of the film. And I think this is the unique power and also magical quality of photography, because you cannot photograph something that is not there. And when you photograph something, even when it's gone, it becomes immortal. It's kind of always left on the film as a memory. And the most powerful experience, of course, if we look at a photograph of somebody who was close to us who passed away, there is this mystical kind of relationship between what we see and their absence. So in this photograph, what happened actually is that the camera sees a moment, a fragment of a moment, and recording it. But there is no trace to this moment because it happens so quickly. So we cannot go to anything. So a question here, and I think a tension between the camera is recording the world or creating the world. because this moment only exists as photograph, although they somehow occurred. And they occurred, there is a tension, there is a tension, so if we're thinking about time and we think about the past and the future, and the present is this metaphysical space that we are living through but does not really exist, I'm trying with my photography often to reach the really kind of the very crisp moment, a moment of the present that is already gone, and those images becoming a memory of these things that you can never go back to. So if I photograph a vase of flower, and we leave the vase of flower, we can go tomorrow and we look and the vase of flowers is still there. These moments are just gone. In the same way that when we photograph a person that is just walking by, and this moment cannot be recreated, but here it kind of pushed to a real extreme. The other thing that I'm really interested in and always trying to explore in my work is a tension that exists between destruction and creation, between moment where something fall apart, but not necessarily becoming an end point or becoming, I would say, does not contain a sense of loss, but the potential for something new. So in all these works, and it's kind of reoccurring in my practice, I destroy something and then I capture it, but I capture something that is becoming a unique and a new possibility. And I like this idea of new possibilities that are coming at the moment where something falls apart. This tension between destruction and creation, it's something that is constant, and I kind of feel it's almost like at the art and the core of our experiences, and there is some sort of resistance to lose something at the moment of transience as change, and I think that's what kind of these works are often about. When I looked at Hendrik Schoock work, one thing that interests me is those sort of architectural arches that he created to place the flowers within. So we build this kind of structure from MDF, and then with plaster, we cover it and start to create a kind of set that kind of have the same tactility and feel that exists in the original painting. But what I was really interested is a space within a space that I was able to create here, because this arc is creating within it a three-dimensional void. So when the explosion took place, there is a surface area, and then there is a kind of a void that the trajectory of the petals can actually fly into and create a sense of a depth that was different from work I've done before, where I was working in open spaces, so the whole photographic space was, or the event happened in a space that kind of felt as unified. I'll stop here for a minute because I just don't know how much we have for each talk, so maybe I'll stop here and ask and give space for some question. Yes.
I noticed you have like a snail in that one and a couple butterflies that are like, it's almost like they've yet to even acknowledge the explosion is happening. I was wondering, is that a nod to the reference, the Dutch painter, or is this kind of like have to do with that thing you mentioned earlier about the absence of something, or something to do with the process of photography for you?
Okay, so a couple of things. So first, the snails, what I did with them, I put them before the explosion. Because the camera is not moving, I took a map photograph before and then I moved them so they never exploded. So it was really important. Then I was able to place them back because the template was there. So I took one photograph before and then explode. So the snails were not in the moment of the explosion. The butterfly was there, but they were dead already. So one thing that interests me is in the 17th century, three things start to happen. One, and I encountered it when I was looking at Jan Bruegel the Elder's painting, and he was one of the kind of the pioneer of this genre. When you stand in front of his painting, you get a sense that you look at a real bouquet that the painter was sitting in front and painted what he saw, but it's actually absolutely a false impression for three reasons. The first one, he painted flowers that blooming at different seasons. So he used to paint each flower individually and create this composition. So you look across different painting, you see almost similar composition or same flower appearing in different painting. This was one thing. The second, this was the beginning of autoculturalism. So you see in the 17th century that all white flowers that appear in Renaissance painting disappear, and all the flowers are flowers that could not exist without human intervention. And the third thing, it's the scientific revolution, and all of a sudden imperialism begins. So flowers start to arrive to Europe from exotic places around the world. So there is this kind of eclectic, in a vase you find flowers that are not native to a particular place, but from all over the place. So to your point, the butterflies, first I start to collect them. They're all dead, so I didn't kill them, but I buy them. I start to collect them on the internet. And I kind of had this idea in my head that it's kind of a digital imperialism. You sit in your home on the computer, and without traveling, everything comes to you, and you don't even know, you lose sense of location. And it's kind of this analogy to the 17th century when people were kind of going and bringing all these things that no one saw before. All of a sudden, they can come and appear. So this is one thing. So I'm really interested in this kind of eclectic, almost lack of responsibility for the origin of things. Mm-hmm. We're living within all of those things, and they are just becoming, so each one becoming almost like, each kind of a arc like this become a space of curiosity where there are things that are being collected eclectically. Another thing is, in those explosions, I see, in my head, I see them as mini cosmic moments. So each one is a constellation. And I did some other work that I tried to kind of work with these ideas that a disaster is happening, or an explosion is happening, or a dramatic event take place, and it affects everything, but then there are certain elements that remain unaffected. And, sometimes a bullet will be fired and it will hit somebody, but somebody else will just go on with the tension that exists between the mundane continuity and the dramatic event, sometimes the tragic event, and the proximity between them. It's something that I'm kind of interested. So in all the work, there are these things that something is really, really disrupted, and if something just retained the same. So the butterflies are definitely playing part in this, because when you look and you find them, there seems to be some of them are still kind of sucking some dew from a flower, where there is this event that is happening that, of course, but the butterflies were there. I put them as part of the composition. Some of them are exploding, so you see fragment of wings. Some of them stay in the kind of fullness and continue with a kind of action with indifference.
Reminds me of those paintings where you have the caterpillar eating the grape leaf, and there's this other action, like you said, the other world kind of going on within the same picture.
So in the 17th century, some of them are referring to mortality and decay, and I'm kind of interested, but in a different way. I'm kind of dealing with the same thing, and there are elements here of kind of consumption and decay that's happening with the explosion, so they are definitely, in this respect, very much related to 17th century painting and thoughts about still lifes. But the most removed from still lifes, although they're kind of themes, you can call them still life, but the events that I capture happen in such a speed and so much trajectory, there is movement in it rather than a static moment that is being depicted.
Thank you, Ori. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.